Guys, welcome to the Boxing Gossip Podcast. Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. Do you know what? This week's been an odd week in boxing. I actually wrote an email to all the guys on the panel only yesterday on Tuesday saying that potentially we might be struggling for topics to discuss in the podcast this week because it's been a slightly quieter period in boxing. But how that's changed today, a huge amount of breaking news, and as a result, a lot of stuff to talk about, and it's going to be a busy show as per usual. So just by way of a brief intro, what we're going to be covering tonight, we're going to start off, we're going to talk a bit about the Fury versus Vladimir Klitschko rematch saga. We're then going to move on, talk Alexander Povetkin, the fact that his ban's been lifted and a title fight's been ordered versus Stiverne. We're going to be talking Degale versus Badou Jack in a fight that looks set to be announced. We're going to be talking about the return of Eubank Jr to Twitter and some of the comments that he's been making. If we've got time, we're going to be throwing in some lists of top fighters based on skills. We're going to be talking Kell, Brook and the bookmakers' odds. And we'll also have a look forward to some of the action next week. Jarrell Miller is fighting Fred Cassie and Errol Spence is fighting Leonard Bundu. So it's a very, very busy one. I'm joined on the panel by Paul, by Seri, and by Iris Tom. Jet hasn't been able to join tonight. He may or may not be able to join later. I'm unsure at this precise moment. But let's get straight into it, and let's start with the Tyson Fury Vladimir Klitschko news today. If you haven't heard it already, Klitschko has come out with a statement saying that Team Fury are trying to change some of the contractual clauses in terms of the rematch, and that Team Klitschko will be taking Team Fury to court. Where does that leave the rematch? Who knows? It's a very, very confusing situation. Paul, let's bring yourself in, mate, as the person to start off the conversation here. What's your take on this whole situation? Can you make any light out of it, I guess?
Not really. I mean, do we know any more details other than what you've just said?
Not really, mate. The statement from Vladimir Klitschko was about 20 seconds long. It was a video statement, and he literally said to keep fans updated. Team Fury has been messing around with previously agreed contractual clauses so as to enforce his rights. He is going to have to take the matter to court. Totally unclear whether it's actually going to court or whether he's just threatening. But regardless, we're now in mid to late August. No rematch has been confirmed. It just seems to be getting longer and longer and longer, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I know I've always been in a bit of a minority with this opinion, but I've kind of, for some time, I pay attention to body language and stuff like that. And when Tyson talks about sort of like not wanting to continue in the game and talking about retiring. I know a lot of people are of the belief that it's just, hype. It's just Tyson and it's just the way he is. I kind of thought different. I've for some time thought that he wasn't a fighter that we were going to have around for long. I didn't think boxing was the be all and end all to him as it is for a lot of fighters. And if I'm honest, this doesn't really surprise me that much.
Right.
Doesn't really surprise me that much. Yeah, he just. He doesn't seem like. I mean, then there's the blowing up between fights and stuff, and he doesn't seem to. He's certainly not a guy that takes boxing hugely seriously anyway, is he? He's more somebody that likes to clearly have fun, and he was in it for money, and I'm guessing he made quite a few quid from the last fight, and I could quite easily see him being someone that, unless things are exactly how he wants them, he doesn't, he maybe won't sort of like feel compelled to take certain fights, and maybe will only fight once or twice more. That's what I've thought, for a while when it comes to Tyson. But I know I'm in a minority, so
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's interesting you say that, mate. A lot of the Twitter rumours, a lot of the internet suggestions after this news is broken, uh, there's various conspiracy theories out there. A lot of them are obviously suggesting that this is in some way linked to the performance enhancing drug situation with Tyson Fury. Others are actually suggesting that the initial fight between Fury and Klitschko ticket sales were exceptionally poor, so poor that it was borderline unbelievable how poor they were. So a lot of people are suggesting that those are potential factors to consider as to why this rematch hasn't been confirmed. Do you take much stock in that, or for you is it more a situation that you're kind of not sure about Tyson Fury himself, and as such you could see him maybe being tricky with making a rematch?
Yeah, I mean, I can see that as being a possibility. And didn't was it Peter Fury that released? Well, he tweeted something recently, didn't he, about the PED situation, saying that they'd been cleared or whatever.
Yes, he did. He did. He's
So
come out and said they're cleared, and I think what's become obvious is they've had a ban temporarily lifted, so they are able to fight.
yeah,
Um, However, they are going before a further hearing in November.
it's really weird. I think the way a lot of the governing bodies tend to be dealing with the issue of PEDs lately. We've had, Erkan being cleared to fight. It was probably one of the worst cases of PEDs, like getting caught and stuff, I've ever heard of. And they seem to be very. There doesn't seem to be any clear sort of like line or boundaries of what they're willing to sort of like tolerate. Um, I find it weird. Like,
Yeah, no, you're right. There isn't any consistency, is there? And
no.
it makes it very confusing. Seri, let's bring yourself in, mate. What was your initial take when you heard the statement from Vladimir today, and also do you buy into some of the conspiracy theories that this relates to the performance enhancing drugs or the ticket sales situation?
Obviously, like I'm pretty disappointed because this is dragged on for just too long now.
Yeah,
Even as die-hard boxing fans, I'm sure we can all agree that you're kind of getting a bit sick and tired of waiting now, and it's getting to a point where this fight. Put it this way: the first fight wasn't one of those fights that you're gonna look back on and say, "Oh, you know what? 10 years from now, you're gonna look back and watch it and say, what a fight that was," because it wasn't. It was more the shock of Klitschko's performance and Tyson Fury's victory. You know what I mean? It wasn't necessarily a memorable fight apart from that. Um, so I think this rematch is getting pretty close to its sell-by date now because it had to happen while the iron was still hot, where Fury's victory was still a massive, massive shock, and he was enemy number one in the public for being vilified by the media and all that. When he was on BBC Sports Personality of the Year, he apologized in front of everyone. He was still, I'm not going to say he's irrelevant, but he was still the hottest thing in boxing. He revitalized the sport at the heavyweight level, single-handedly with that victory. I know some people are of the opinion that Anthony Joshua revitalized it. I get that like more on the British scene at that point because he hadn't even faced Dillian White at that point. But it's after that now he's obviously claimed the IBF strap and now he's going to go onwards and upwards. And I feel a bit sorry for Tyson Fury because I feel as much as this Klitschko fight that he had was a gift, it's also become his curse now because now he's hated upon by everyone, for various other reasons. But he doesn't care. We know he doesn't care about that sort of stuff. He's in it to play the villain. Whether you love him or hate him, Tyson Fury is a character. This is what he does. He says that I'm the king of mind games. So I don't believe in the whole thing about him wanting to retire and all that stuff. But I mean, I don't believe in the PEDs either. And it's not, some people are ignorant enough to say, oh, he's fat, so he can't be on PEDs. I'm not even that stupid to say that. It's not about how he looks, but I just don't feel he'd go down that route. Of course, our sport's plagued with this sort of stuff. Povetkin and many other people have been caught out, but over the years. But Tyson Fury for me, I think is a clean athlete in my opinion. I don't know about with this fight anymore. I don't know if I'm bothered anymore with this fight. And to be fair, I don't think there's a need for a rematch. I know it was in Klitschko put it in the contract, which was unusual because I'm pretty sure Klitschko and Fury that was a mandatory fight, wasn't it, for WBA and WO? They both mandated it, didn't they?
you're spot on, sorry, and that relates to a point I was going to make later on, which is that Why did the Furies ever agree to this? They're
This is the
clearly
thing.
unhappy with some clause in the contract now. Why did they agree to the rematch and the clauses that they don't like before the fight?
This is the issue because when in history, okay, I'm not going to act like I know everything about boxing history, but from what we know as boxing fans who we know enough to talk about this sort of stuff, when have we seen in recent history that a mandatory challenger has been made to sign a rematch? That doesn't happen. Voluntaries we see it, but not in mandated fights, especially when two of the governing bodies had to get Klitschko back against the wall to face Fury, because Fury have been calling that for at least 2 to 3 years. But obviously, I think that's beyond the point. But it's very just I don't know. It's a bit dodgy. The fact that Klitschko obviously knew that Fury was a threat. That's why he wanted a rematch clause, just in case. Why else would a super champion like Klitschko, ask for a rematch? Looking at Fury, he's not the most attractive prospect to face, not just physically speaking, but what he does in the ring. And his name wasn't necessarily a name that you look at and say he's a big name. Fury's always been someone people want to see lose, or people are interested in seeing what sort of smack he talks coming up to the fight, and then the whole Batman antics. Those sort of things paid off. So we had a bit of a value for our money with Fury in the build up to that fight. But it's a very tricky one now because Tyson Fury is in a position where if this drags out for too long, they're going to look to strip him. The IBF didn't care. Had Klitschko obviously beat Fury, then of course there was no rematch and he would have faced Glasgow, wouldn't he? Naturally, and moved on from there. But I feel like Fury's just he's in a tough position now, and I hope he doesn't get stripped. I think this would be very, very unfair because then someone like David Hay, who's a hungry dog, he's gonna jump in somehow and do some politics and get a world title out of nowhere. I don't think he deserves it. How the hell does beating Mark Demori, a YouTube boxer, and then beating Arnold Zherzhag, the Cobra, supposedly, how the hell does that warrant him getting a number 3 ranking in the IBF and number 6 to the WBC and number 5 in WBA, whatever it is? This is where Tyson Fury is going to end up being the scapegoat here. He's going to be taken out of the picture. And as stupid as it may sound, yeah, you look at people, when Muhammad Ali was scapegoated because of the Vietnam War and he was taken out for 2 3 years, he missed his prime. What I don't want for Tyson Fury now is him to get caught up in this sort of stupid stuff where he misses a year and a half because of this sort of this court case and all this business, and he's going to miss out on his prime physical time because. And Fury's not even a fit guy. Let's look at it that way. He's a guy who he cuts a lot of weight. That's not going to do good for his body and on his style of boxing, where he's fluid movement, footwork. I think he's got the best footwork out of all the heavyweights. We can agree on that, I'm sure. He can move around the ring and make it very, very tricky. I don't want him to suffer from something like Muhammad Ali, where he misses prime years because he's only 27. I mean, he's 28. Sorry, the other day. But I don't want to miss out on Fury's prime, where he can still, act. Sorry, strike while the iron's hot, like we said, because it's been 9 months since that night. And that's scary because it still feels like yesterday to me, but he's missing out on prime years, and we don't want that. We've seen many fighters miss out on potentially some of the biggest fights at the right time, simply because things outside of their control took place. Yes, Tom BG, you mentioned about signing for the rematch. Of course, look, what was said was that they were only offered the fight if they'd signed for the rematch. That's total bullshit, because how the hell would the WBO and WBA would allow that if they mandated Fury? They would have stripped Klitschko unless Klitschko was that powerful. I don't know, but on the flip side, Klitschko is one of the biggest names in heavyweight history, recent heavyweight history. So it makes sense to sign for a rematch simply for the money and the value of that fight for Tyson Fury. And should he beat him twice, then he's the only man in history to hold 2 victories over Klitschko, and back to back at that would be incredible, regardless of him being old and all that. But I'm not happy with this, man, and it's starting to wind me up a bit. But whatever happens now, I'm hoping the fight happens within the next 5 to 6 months. If not, I'm not interested whatsoever.
Yeah, you made some really good points, Terry. And to sort of look back in history very briefly, the purse bids for this fight were called. We were actually an hour, maybe even less than an hour, 20 minutes away from the purse bids going ahead, when Mick Hennessy and K2 actually made a deal. And a large theory at the time as to why a deal was reached was that Mick Hennessy would be able to get the fight on Sky Sports pay-per-view with a deal with Eddie Hearn. And it would have been financially beneficial for Tyson Fury to get the fight on Sky Sports pay-per-view, which I'm sure it was. I don't know if you guys recall, but Frank Warren had wheeled out some Russian billionaire who was going to bid on his behalf and potentially take the fight to Box Nation, which was deemed a less attractive option potentially. So I don't know what actually went on there, but what seemed to happen is that the Furies gave up their right to have a purse bid and be treated as a mandatory challenger by making a deal. And clearly, when they made that deal, Not only did they agree to a rematch clause, which for me was a basic error, but in addition to that, they've obviously agreed to several other contractual clauses. Now, I don't know if they had to agree to those clauses in a hurry because of the situation with the purse bids being so close, but they've obviously agreed to things that they're now no longer happy with, and I don't know what that relates to. I don't know if it relates to finances. I don't know if it relates to venues, other circumstances, but it's very, very bizarre, and seemingly Team Fury are no longer happy with the agreement that they signed, which perhaps is a lesson they shouldn't have signed the agreement in the first place. And we certainly wouldn't have this situation where a rematch is going ahead. I can't really make sense of it. I'm not 100% clear why or what it is that the Furies in particular have an objection to. Having spoken to Paul and Surrey, it doesn't seem either of you can individually pinpoint it either. One man who's never sort of an opinion is Irish Tom. Let's bring him in and see what his take is on the situation.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So, Alec, you know, Klitschko in the original negotiations for the first match, you know, he's got such a position of power there that he can probably dictate terms to the Furies and force them to force them to give him a rematch clause. Because he might say, why? Because he might say it was only mandated by 2 of the belts. So he might say you're not getting the other belts if you don't sign up for the rematch clause. And when it comes to Fury's side of it, Klitschko is the number one money man in the boxing division. You get more money probably being the A side against Klitschko than you will being the A side even against Joshua at that time. You know, because Joshua wasn't even British level. So he probably signs up to it because he goes, well, if I do win, I'll just fight Klitschko again and then I'll make a shed load of cash again. Now, when it comes to what Vladimir Klitschko is talking about today, we don't know what contract that's about. You know, when you sign the rematch clause, it doesn't. All the terms aren't in the rematch, aren't in that first contract. What the second one is going to look like. You just have the right to have a rematch. As far as I'm usually, that's the way I understand it normally happens. And now when this one got cancelled this time and the ticket sales were really bad, maybe the Furies and Mick Hennessy or whatever are trying to renegotiate the terms of the second fight's contract because the ticket sales were so bad. And now when they have a second one on and there's so much doubt about whether Fury will actually be allowed to fight or he'll turn up or whatever, that maybe they're trying to give Klitschko worse terms. You know?
I see what you mean, yeah. So you think like, it is potentially linked to the ticket sales and PED situations then?
Yeah, and it's not necessarily, like, when you have a rematch clause, you don't have all the conditions about what the rematch will be in that one. Because you haven't got to negotiate 2 fights. You'll have a rematch clause and you'll have a certain amount of time to invoke it, and then you get down to negotiating over that rematch. So, like, more than likely, it's because the fight was cancelled and now it's on again, and the sales didn't go that well, and the ticket pricing apparently was, you know, way too high, that they're struggling to basically match what they could get in Germany. So Klitschko's probably going to say, well, fuck it, they're not going to be able to guarantee the money that we agreed on, so I'm going to try, I want to basically bring it back to Germany unless they give it to me. And then maybe Frank Warren is going, saying, well, we can't afford to give them that if we're not selling all these fucking tickets at high prices. You know, so who knows what's going on. But, like, I don't, you know, it's probably, I don't know, I just hope the fight happens. I'm like a total, like, I think I must be a bigger nerd even than Jet, because I've watched that Tyson Fury fight 6 or 7 times. And I know I can watch it nearly, I can watch that fight every day, even though it's kind of rubbish. I don't know why I really like it. So I'm really looking forward to the rematch. I really want to see it. And I hope it doesn't take ages to happen. I just want to see Fury fighting. You know, that's the main thing. I want to see him fighting. And I'd really like to see him do the rematch with Wlad.
Totally, yeah, I'm on the same page there. First and foremost, we need him fighting. He's the best heavyweight in the world in my book. He's the best character in world boxing in my book. We need to see him active. A follow-up question for you, Tom, is that in the last fight, a lot of people suggested that Vladimir Klitschko got old overnight. Now, that isn't my opinion. I actually disagree with that. But a lot of people say Klitschko was starting to fade. He got old overnight. There's the old saying, Father Time is the only undefeated fighter in boxing. Now, the question I've got for you is, Vladimir Klitschko is now in his 40s. He hasn't fought for 9 months. Even if the rematch was booked late October, he wouldn't have fought for 11 months. It looks like there's going to be a delay further to that. Are we getting to the point where this fight has been delayed so much and so much and so much, and Klitschko's been so inactive that his increasing years could actually be a real factor in the fight? I mean, fundamentally, if he was old last time, he's now going to be 40, 41 when he gets back in the ring. Is that relevant?
Well, I don't think it was because he got old the last time, because his hand speed seemed to be good. His foot speed, which is probably his biggest attribute, was still good. You know, he was bouncing around that ring. He didn't look tired. He was putting it on Fury in the 11th and the 12th. You know, the thing that beat Fury was the same thing that beat Postal. It was foot movement and angles and controlled distance. So
I was just about to say that. Well done.
Thanks very much, Jerry. Great minds, and think alike, and fools seldom differ. But what do you call it? Yeah, so I think it's unlikely to be. I don't think it had anything to do with him getting old. But now, you know, if it's a year and a half maybe after that, and he is 40, maybe it could be a thing. I think the thing with Klitschko is that he's, you know, he's a very, very skillful fighter in what he does well, but he's not a guy who has the ability to adapt. I think he needs to have his plan before he goes into that thing, and you know, he's very reluctant. I think because of it, he had some brutal knockouts. Well, they weren't super brutal, but he got a few beatdowns. There were more beatdowns than brutal one-punch KOs. That he's very reticent to expose himself to certain types of shots, because he knows that if he like, he doesn't hit to the body because he's afraid of getting hit. So like, there are certain type of things that he's psychologically not prepared to do, considering how things went for him in the past. But I think though that, I don't know, I get the impression that Klitschko's chin has improved. I don't know, does anybody else think his chin has improved, or is it just that he's not getting caught with certain types of shots?
I think defensively he's improved massively, and I also think that his chin was one of those chins that was nowhere near as bad as it was made out to be. You know, I know he's beaten opposition he's been dominant against, but we've seen him and we've seen him taking punches from the likes of David Hay, Povetkin, you know, and those guys haven't even dropped him. I'm not saying Klitschko's got all of them a cool chin, because he certainly doesn't, but he's not got an Amir Khan chin either. Sorry. You know, it's like it's not as bad as it was made out to be.
No, and so maybe he just needs that mindset. Another thing, there was other things surrounding it. You know, his wife, he had to give birth to his kid, and his wife had postnatal depression, and like, I've had a kid, and I can tell you how much fucking hard work it is and how mental it can turn you. So maybe he wasn't fully up for that fight in the same way. Although I doubt it. When you're a multimillionaire, you can have fucking childminders come out of your arse so you can get a good night's sleep. But so I don't know. I think Fury bet him, and I think that Klitschko, if he really knows his plan when he comes again, he'll have a better chance. But the only thing is that if Fury, as Klitschko has a different plan, Fury can adapt. Like, if there's a fighter in heavyweight boxing that can adapt, it's Fury. Like, he's the only one there. Now, we haven't seen Ortiz, whether he can adapt, but Fury has fought very different styles in a lot of different fights. Like, you compare, like, that fight to, say, the Cunningham fight, you know, just chalk and cheese, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. You're looking at a guy who can fight southpaw and orthodox, front foot and back foot, inside and outside, you know, amazing punch variety. In terms of adaptability and versatility, he's the leading fighter in heavyweight boxing as far as I'm concerned.
By a mile.
Yeah. Klitschko, he has perfected his style. Yeah, absolutely perfected it. Can he punch to the body? No. Can he fight on the inside? No. Can he fight southpaw? No. You know, he's not as well rounded as Tyson Fury. But it's an interesting one. Guys, does anyone else on the panel have anything further to add on Fury v Klitschko before we move it on?
Yeah, I think Fury's the best heavyweight in the world, and that's about it.
I've something.
Good stuff.
I've something to say. I don't know. I was listening to one of Hatman boxing. I don't know if you guys listen to
Yeah,
Hatman.
yeah, I'm a fan of Hatman. Yeah.
Yeah, big fan of his.
Yeah, yeah.
And he had a video on about the heavyweight scene, and he was saying how like all of these guys are going to give and take losses from each other, and how he didn't see that Fury was just going to beat all these guys. But like, what do you think? I think I don't see a style in these guys. Maybe Ortiz, but all the other guys I see, Fury has the style to beat them. What do everybody else think?
I see Hatman's point because we've got a few diverse different styles here. You've got Deontay Wilder, who is a guy who has got that one-punch knockout, who isn't necessarily technically efficient, but somehow he's landing these bombs on people that are taking him out and that are making them obviously hurting people and getting the referee to jump in, But his technical efficiencies are very, very obvious for everyone to see. Then you've got a prospect in Anthony Joshua who's been rushed into the limelight, who is doing well for what he's been put in against. But again, we don't know where his chin's at. We don't know where his stamina's at. We don't know if he has, any more to his game apart from what he's shown right now, apart from being an accumulation puncher. I don't think he's got the power to take out someone with one shot. We've not really seen that everywhere. He's put people to sleep with one shot like a Wilder. And then you've got obviously the boogeyman at this point is obviously Ortiz, isn't he? But he's not getting the big fights because people don't want to face him. It's risk and reward. Then Fury is the guy who beat the man. He's obviously the lineal champion. But I think Hatman's got a very good point because the stylistic matchup, we don't really know. Potentially, they could all trade losses, could be rematches and trilogies. Or unfortunately, I think we're in a division. The state of boxing right now, we're not going to get rematches, and like obviously Klitschko and Fury was an anomaly in terms of a mandatory challenger being put into a rematch clause. We've never really seen that, have we, in modern boxing, I suppose. But I mean, for me, the way Tyson Fury fights, the fact that he can adapt to whatever he's getting in the ring with, I think that's going to hold him very well moving forward against the big dogs in the division, Deontay Wilder, Anthony Joshua, and the fact that he genuinely, you can tell when he says he's going to beat him, he means it. You know what I mean? But I think he would beat both of them in the ring. I'm not saying it would be easy. I think out of the two, he would struggle more against Anthony Joshua once Anthony Joshua is a bit more experienced. But I think Fury has the potential to beat them all. I think he is that good, and I think he can adapt and pretty much kill off any sort of any boxing match. I think he's going to end up being a type of guy who we look at where I don't want to make a comparison against these sort of fighters because he's not necessarily like them. But put it this way, Tyson Fury, even though yes at times he's lumbering and plodding and he's not the most pretty boxer to look at. When you look at Terence Crawford, you can say you can appreciate his work. Rigondeaux, you can appreciate his ring craft. Mayweather, you can appreciate his movement, his defense. But I think Tyson Fury fights more like those guys than he does a white man, if that makes any sense. He fights more like these African American type fighters or the Cuban fighters. He's got that sort of game. He hasn't got like a power game or he's not the most I don't know how to sum him up, but he's slick. He's got a good defense, got good movement. He's a very, very tricky fighter to define in that sense. But the fact that he has so many different qualities and the fact that he can adapt, this is the sort of era we're in, the era of the adaptive fighters. We saw that with Crawford and Polster. We've seen that with Mayweather, who's always able to adapt in the ring and take away his opponent's best attributes. But in the lead up to Canelo, Mayweather, everyone said Canelo can box, he's not just a power puncher. Mayweather got in the ring and dominated him from every angle. He stood in front of him, made him miss 6-punch combos. And Canelo's not a slow fighter, so Tyson Fury, he obviously got in the ring. He beat Klitschko before he got in the ring, just with his mentality and his psychological approach. But he's the only guy that I can remember in recent history stand in front of a Klitschko type fighter with his hands behind his back and sticking his chin out. That was not only was it disrespectful, but that just shows that he knows that he's got Klitschko's number. I do think if that rematch, I think Fury will do the same, and probably it'll be a better fight. But I don't know. I just feel like Fury is the man in this division. I just feel like he's going to get a lot of hate because his style isn't the most attractive to the casual fans. But I do think Fury overall will be the guy to beat in this division. I don't think Joshua or Wilder will beat him.
Like, could you for Hatman to say what he was saying, like say if there's not going to be a one fighter that dominates, you kind of have to make one of them nearly a favourite against Fury. Do we make anybody a favourite against Fury?
No, not really, not at this stage, and I don't think so anyway. I mean, I think I've seen the video you were talking about, Tom, the Hatman, his video that you're talking about. I think he was more talking about like a lot of the younger up and comings. I think he was talking about guys like AJ and Joe Parker and people like that they're going to take losses off each other and stuff.
I think he was including Fury. I do think he's including Fury, Paul.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think he was including Fury. I think, you know what? I think what you got to remember is I agree. I think I would have Fury as the favourite against any of the other heavyweights at the moment, except maybe Luis Ortiz. But again, I'd still probably have Tyson as the favourite. But at the same time, he hasn't got a lot of power, and he is susceptible to punches. All right, he's always got up and won the fight, but I don't know if he's ever been in with anybody who hits as hard as Wilder, and I don't know if he's ever been in with anybody who's as fast and sort of like accurate with their punching as Joshua. And so for that reason, I think it's definitely possible that one of them could take give him an L. Like, it's possible, But
Paul, do you not think, Paul, that Vladimir Klitschko hits a lot harder than Wilder?
That's just what I was going to say. He hits as hard and he's as accurate as.
Yeah, no, I don't know. What I said was as quick and hard. I think Klitschko does hit harder, yeah, but I don't think he's as fast. I don't think he's as fast as AJ.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, Tom, I'd certainly pick Fury as the favourite over everyone. The Luis Ortiz fight, that's one I'd be particularly confident in Tyson winning, actually. I think Tyson's got the perfect style to beat Luis Ortiz. I think he'd stay on the outside for 4 or 5 rounds, and I think Luis Ortiz would chase him around the ring, throwing heavy leather, get frustrated and gas quite quickly. I mean, if we think Vladimir Klitschko's old, Luis Ortiz is old enough to be Vladimir's father, let's be honest. It's style-wise, I don't see that as a good matchup for him, mate.
That would make the same size, about the same age.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of rumours
that would make a good time travel boxing film where you can go back and impregnate somebody before he was born.
This is it. As you know, there's lots of rumours that Luis Ortiz is quite a bit older than is officially listed. But
I wouldn't believe that, because like I struggle to understand how he's as sort of like nimble and whatever as the age that he's sort of like billed as. So I struggle to believe he's even older than that. I mean,
if you look at him, he does not look like a young man, does he? But I know what you mean. He's very light on his feet. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
There's a lot of bullshit talked about Cuban fighters. They're going to have a fucking passport. I'd say it's a lot of it is nonsense.
Yeah.
Okay. Regardless, though, we're talking about a guy who, even if his passport is, even if his listed age is correct, he's in his late 30s.
Yeah.
He's never been late in a fight, and the times that he's gone 6th round, 7th round, for me, he's looked quite gassy in there. And Bryant Jennings fought probably the second worst tactical fight I've ever seen, only losing to Quigg against Frampton, when Bryant Jennings fought Luis Ortiz. Bryant Jennings, one of the elite movers of the heavyweight division, a guy who, on his best day, can move like a David Hay, and he decided to stand in front of Luis Ortiz and throw bombs from inside the pocket. A terrible stylistic fight from Jennings, but managed to last 6 or 7 rounds. And for me, Luis Ortiz was starting to struggle stamina-wise in that fight at the time of the stoppage. As Dwyer always says, knockouts cause amnesia, and people forget that Luis Ortiz was actually having 1 or 2 tough moments in that fight right before the stoppage, actually. And Jennings, to my eye, was coming on stronger. And I picked Tyson Fury as a much bigger man with much more educated boxing than Bryant Jennings to frustrate him and not get stopped in the 7th round and then wear him down late. But it'd be interesting to see if it did happen, yeah. Let's move it on, guys. We've spoken, obviously, about Fury, Klitschko. at decent length. There's another major bit of heavyweight news today. The WBC have lifted the ban against Alexander Povetkin. They've released a statement. It's a long statement. I haven't read through it line by line. But it appeared to my eye what they were saying is they couldn't conclusively say, having consulted with medical specialists and experts, subject matter experts, they couldn't conclusively say that Povetkin had taken the substance after the date it was banned. So given the fact that they can't prove it, they are going to lift the ban. They have also ordered a WBC interim title fight, the interim world title, against Stiverne. And that fight's been ordered because Deontay Wilder is obviously out of the ring with injury after the injuries he suffered against Chris Arreola. So the return of Povetkin and a potential fight of Stiverne. Two bits of news for us to digest there. Seri, let's start with you. What's your take on that, mate?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of like, it was touted across quite a lot of Twitter accounts and stuff that Alexander Povetkin might end up fighting for an interim title because, of course, Deontay Wilder will be out for at least the next 6, 7, 8 months, maybe even until next summer, most likely. And of course, the fight that the WBC wants is Povetkin and Wilder again. They want to get that fight back on. Wilder wants it, Povetkin wants it. It's a massive fight. It'll be the biggest challenge that Deontay Wilder has faced up until now, anyway. But Povetkin versus Stiverne, I'm not really too interested in seeing Stiverne against Povetkin. I think it'll be a good fight though. If overall, like in terms of, Stiverne after the Wilder fight, we haven't really seen him step in with a top heavyweight. Have we? We've seen him once, I believe he's fought once since then. In what, year and a half?
He fought Derek Rossi. So like January.
Yeah, so since January 2015, he's fought once.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, of course he needs to get in the ring. It's coming up to 2 years by the time the fight between him and Povetkin is happening. But I'd pick Povetkin in that fight to win. Because again, I genuinely do believe the WBC want a Povetkin Wilder fight. I'm not really, too fussed either way. Whether it ends up being Stiverne or someone else, it wouldn't have bothered me because, like I just said, they're more interested in making sure Povetkin keeps his mandatory shot. Because that is a massive fight, Povetkin Wilder. But for me, yeah, I'm not overly interested, but I think it's a good fight in terms of the two men involved are decent names in the heavyweight division. Also, it adds a bit more intrigue and a bit more pressure on Hearn and Matchroom now, with Stiverne being potentially the most how do I put it, the most sexy name in terms of a fight for AJ and potentially a test for him. Now they're left with Parker and Pulev, and obviously Parker's holding out for the mandatory shot compared to obviously being a voluntary. And Pulev, for me, against Joshua is a decent fight, so it's a good step up. But it has an impact, doesn't it? This fight, it has an impact on Joshua's next move, which is said to be announced in the next few weeks. So if it was Stiverne, then obviously Stiverne has a choice to make whether he's going to go for the interim championship or go in there with a young guy and go for a full world championship. But I'm not too sure. What would you guys go for if you was Stiverne?
I'd probably go for the Joshua fight. They're potentially both big money fights. But I probably wouldn't want to travel to Povetkin's backyard. And also, I'm not saying that Joshua is not a better fighter than Povetkin, but what I can say is Joshua is certainly a less tried and tested fighter than Povetkin. There's more scope that he could. We know Povetkin's got an excellent chin. We know Povetkin's got excellent experience. Joshua's a lot greener, a lot less tested. It's a more winnable fight, I would say, for Stiverne. But you raise a very interesting point there, Seri, actually, because Stiverne was certainly the front runner for the Joshua fight. So I think Parker's out of the running because he's got another fight with Dimitrenko.
Yeah.
If Stiverne was to be out of the running, that would leave Kubrat Pulev, who that's quite a big step up. I'm not sure whether Hearn would be confident putting Joshua straight in with Pulev without someone in between. And that makes me wonder whether David Price potentially re-enters the equation, mate.
Yeah, but you know what it is, Tom? As much as I think that David Price fight is a fight I'd want to see down the line, considering the whole he's knocked him out before kind of thing. As much as Joshua was a lot greener than he is now, even there's not really there's no legs to that fight, if that makes any sense. There's no legs that they have to stand on that justifies David Price versus Joshua on pay-per-view. On a fight night, obviously they're not going to do that now because there's too much money in Joshua's name. and too many people are relying on him now. He's already the meal ticket for all of his friends and family, obviously, as well as Sky Sports. But do you see my point? David Price hasn't done anything to warrant him getting the fight. Not that I'm saying I'd hold anything against Price if he got the fight. I'd be over the moon for him because I feel like he's one of the fighters who, in recent memory, in the last 3-4 years, has been wrong a good few times and has been forgotten. He was the guy that people were saying before Joshua came along that he was the guy that was going to beat the Klitschkos. People got too hyped and obviously he got caught up and he got knocked out twice in a row by obviously a PED. Tony Thompson, and then obviously the whole Contepa controversy last year as well. So I feel sorry for David Price, but that's not really going to change the past, is it? It's not going to mask his deficiencies in the ring. Yes, he's a massive guy. In fact, he's not just a big guy. I saw a photo of him and Tony Bellew. And Tony Bellew's not a small guy; he's huge as well. But Price is just a behemoth in that regard. But stylistically, I'd love to see the fight, but I just don't feel that David Price is ready. He needs to get 2 or 3 decent names, and then someone like a Joshua. Like I said, there's nothing to warrant that fight at the moment, apart from just 2 British heavyweights. But David Price is not ready for that fight.
Interesting stuff. Paul, what's your take both on the Povetkin situation and also the AJ situation?
Yeah, Price isn't even Price isn't even in the top 15 of the IBF, is he?
He is, mate. They've reinstated him because of the Tepper situation.
Okay. Well, again, I still kind of agree with Sherry, though. He hasn't really done anything to warrant it. But at the same time, I think your point about Eddie Hearn maybe preferring somebody like Price over a Kubrat Pulev at this point, because obviously a defeat for AJ would be. I mean, it wouldn't be the end of his career by any means, but it would be pretty disastrous financially. It would derail that hype train in a big way, wouldn't it? He wouldn't have that sort of like indestructibility or air of it that he seems to have to the casuals. The casuals seem to think he, it will just walk through absolutely everybody, and that would no longer be the case. And I think that's a big part of AJ's pulling power when it comes to the gates and stuff. So yeah, I mean that's definitely a fight that could happen, and I couldn't agree more with Sherry as well on the poor old David Price deserves it. I mean, we can't say for sure whether the PEDs would have made Contepa hit harder, but certainly you have to look at that and say that wasn't really a fair fight, and you've got to imagine you'd feel quite wronged if the only losses on your records, pretty bad knockouts, were from 3 people that had subsequently been found guilty of cheating, essentially. So I suppose from that point of view, I suppose he deserves it. He deserves a bit of a payday as well. But personally, I'd prefer to see AJ fight Pulev, to be honest.
Yeah, and what's your take on the Povetkin situation, mate? Are you happy to see him back? Do you have any sort of bad feeling about that, or are you neutral?
In all honesty, I don't know enough about how I've heard these arguments. When he was first banned and stuff, people go back and forward on Twitter and on YouTube and stuff about how it works and how it's possible that he could still give a positive, but still have taken it before the cut-off point. And in all honesty, I don't know if I paid enough attention to it, or if I was interested in enough in that specific, because the whole PEDs thing just seems to me like, I'm kind of with Tom. I think a lot of them are on it, and it's just like, how important are the fucking details, So I don't have any strong objection to Povetkin coming back. I mean it was a drug that was legal for a long time, wasn't it?
Yeah.
and so it's I find it hard to strongly object to it. The one thing I will say is the heavyweight division's definitely has more quality for him being back. He's for me one of the top heavyweights in the world for sure. And so I don't really get the Stiverne thing. I don't really get what Stiverne's necessarily done to propel him into that position, but I mean, he didn't look great against Derek Rossi, as I recall.
No, he got dropped, mate. Dropped badly.
Yeah.
Derek Rossi is he's average at best, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly. So for that reason, it's not a fight that sort of like gives me chills.
Yeah.
by any means, but yeah, not really too much more than that to say on it, to be honest.
Fair enough, mate. Fair enough. Irish Tom, your take on the return of Povetkin, mate?
Well, I think if they can't catch him, if they don't think they have proof, because it was a very low reading, fair enough. But let's see if he tests positive again, if they'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But the WBC, all their stuff now is done by WADA. I think everybody who's top 15, I think, is WADA tested, or VADA tested, which is the good one. Which is good because they did a carbon isotope, and that's what caught him. So that's good. So WBC is the only one that really has sorted out their drug stuff, which is very good. I don't know why Stiverne is getting it, but I think it's a decent enough fight. I'm kind of glad he didn't get the AJ fight, to be honest. I wasn't looking forward to that fight. I prefer to see AJ fighting somebody, I don't know. I think he might be a bit shot. So I prefer to see AJ fighting somebody who might test him a little bit. I think the Price fight is not a good fight. David Price just, oh dear, one good jab, and I think he's on the ropes, and I think it could be over within a minute. So I really like watching AJ fight, but what really gets irks kind of, I think, hardcore fans like us is the hype. So I think a lot of people who are hardcore fans are waiting for the day for when he's bet, which is it's a bit harsh on AJ. But I could imagine being extremely excited if Price won. Just the whole reaction of falling down at this big house of cards around AJ that's been built up.
Who would you like to see him in with then, Tom? That's what I'm thinking, because we're saying no to Stiverne and no to Price potentially. So who do you see as the option?
Well, I wouldn't say no to Stiverne, but I just think I'd prefer to see. There's lots of good fights out there. I'd like to see Parker. I'd like to see Pulev.
Well, it definitely won't be Parker, mate, because he's already got his next fight confirmed.
Okay, yeah.
Pulev is definite, maybe, yeah.
Let's have a look at the top IBF top 15.
Yeah. See, there's a few real random names in there. There's like David Hay, Andy Ruiz, Jarrell Miller, just people like that who
are shit.
Yeah, who are unlikely to be the next choice. Let's put it that way.
I don't think it'll be David Hay.
It won't be David Hay.
Won't be David Hay. Duapas, that's probably a good shout.
That's a possibility. Yeah, Eric Molina, I suppose. Isn't he still in the?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean he's a possibility. They were talking about him, Duhapas as well.
There's Takam as well.
Deal fight.
Takam is in there too. Takam is a bit slippery. They might want Takam. I think they're more likely to go for a big tough guy who's a bit of a punch bag like Duapas. I'd like to see the Duapas fight because he's got some punch though, so maybe they don't want him. He's not going to sit down.
It's funny. Duhapas is actually known. Or Depar, I think it's pronounced, is actually known as a very light puncher. Having said that, he did knock Robert Helenius, who was undefeated and was known as having a good chin, clean out. But
Wilder, did he not give Wilder some tricky moments?
To be honest, he went much later than anticipated against Depar, against Wilder. And he did land some jabs, but fundamentally he was beaten up for 10, 11 rounds and lost every single round before getting stopped, and kind of showed his level.
I'll tell you who I'd like to see AJ fight out of the IBF top 15. I'd like to see the Charles Martin rematch.
You heard what happened to Charles Martin, didn't you, Tom?
Yeah, he's a proper gangster, man. Walking the street like a god. Who else is there? We might get Tarek Chisora, lads. There's a fight you might get.
It's not totally impossible, is it, actually? Yeah. It's not. I think Price is more likely than Chisora, though. It's more marketable.
Do you reckon?
Price is bigger. He's known as the Olympian. He's known as the big puncher. They're already spinning the thing about Price supposedly knocking him out. I think for me, there's a greater chance of Price pulling an upset than Chisora.
I think an awful lot of these things are quite scripted as well. When a guy puts out a tweet like that, sometimes I reckon it's all in the PR department have been telling them to do it.
Yeah,
it
that's
feels
a
a bit of
really
a thing.
That's a really good point, actually. I forgot about the fact that Price came out recently with that. That for me makes it even more likely, actually, Tom.
Yeah.
That's a really good point.
Price is not someone to go calling people out or doing anything like that, or even saying that he sparks someone. So that leads me to believe it's probably on the way. The other thing is, like, you had that rumor a few weeks ago, gossip, that Eddie Hearn was gone to America to visit Don King.
Yes.
But they must have known as well that Stiverne was up for that thing, because the WBC fight. So Don King must have known that was in the works. The WBC would have been talking to him. So I think they probably have known for a couple of weeks that that's not going ahead, and maybe that's the pricing. I think it's a pretty, I don't know. Like, I don't know what the under, like, what's the under or the over? Like, what's the 50-50 spot we think the fight's going to get to? Will it get to 3 rounds? Will you get evens on under 3 rounds?
What, without knowing the opponent, you mean?
No, with Price.
With Price. Well, let's put it this way. The 50-50 over-under against Brazil was 4 rounds, I believe. And Brazil had never been stopped. So presumably against Price it'll be less. Firstly, because Price has been stopped several times. And secondly, because unlike Brazil, Price also has the power to end a fight himself. So, yeah, logically it could easily be 2.5, 3 rounds, mate. Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's like 2 rounds. I don't see that fight getting out of 2 rounds.
Yeah, but as we've said before, mate, one of the most overused cliches in boxing is it really is down to who lands first, and that is nearly always nonsense. But in this fight, that probably is true. Like, whoever lands the first right hand probably does win the fight.
Yeah, or in Joshua's case, just a jab.
Just a jab. That's all you need. All you need. Interesting stuff, though. It's interesting how one bit of news can affect so many other different things. We have Povetkin being cleared. Now you've suddenly got Bermane Stiverne in a title fight. Now you've got Anthony Joshua versus David Price, or Anthony Joshua versus Kubrat Pulev becoming more and more of an option. Mikey said in the chat, AJ could take Price's power. Well, it didn't sound like he could take it in sparring when Price was wearing much bigger gloves. So I'm not 100% sure. I think if a man of Price's size and power hits any man on the chin, there's the potential for them to be knocked out. That's not me hating on AJ. For me, that's just the fact of the matter.
Here, I have a question. Do you think that Sky would actually accept Price as a...
Hell yes.
But yeah. Hell yes. But remember what happened when... But remember what happened when... But like, listen, remember what happened when David Hay took on Audley Harrison pay-per-view, and it was like a joke fight. Because this has got the potential of being a joke fight. One jab, back to the ropes, a couple of right hands over in 10 seconds.
The thing I've got to tell you, though, Tom, is for Anthony Joshua, circumstances have changed. Like, was Harrison any better than Joshua Martin? Or any worse than Joshua Martin? The thing is, Joshua Martin was hailed as a huge success. Nobody was complaining after that fight. Sky weren't thinking of parking pay-per-view after that fight. Quite the contrary.
Yeah, but that's different, Tom, though, because you had to win the title, And for some god unknown fucking reason, the bookies had that close. The thing is, with the Audley Harrison one, everybody knew that was a mismatch before it started. With the Martin one, they didn't. So they could sell it as in, oh, wow, look how good he was on the night.
I hear you. I think the money behind that David Price fight is going to be so large. I think that will be Anthony Joshua's biggest fight in terms of pay-per-view sales. I think that will actually go past what they did against Dillian White. And I think the money there will be so large. And Price could potentially be a relatively affordable opponent. I'm not sure Price has had the massive career paydays that people will expect to have had. Yeah, I wouldn't be amazed if Price has never even had a £250,000 fight before.
Oh, you're joking me. I'd say he's never... Yeah, no way.
No way. So what I'm getting at is Price is going to be an affordable opponent. I think it could do 500,000 pay-per-view buys. I think there'll be a huge amount of hype. Eddie Hearn is also craftier these days. He's got some good experience under his belt, and he will build an undercard to a fight like that. He's often mentioned in interviews several times he's very conscious of building big undercards for...
Yeah, he says that, though, but look at the last shit show undercard. Groves against Murray. That was it. Like, that was fucking useless. What else was...
Murray, for the Brazil fight?
Brazil fight. What else was any decent on that thing? I think he talks that big game, but the only really good undercard, he probably's only ever had 2 good undercards. And one of them was by accident. Both of them were probably by accident when the home fighter got beaten.
I don't know though, mate. I know that Groves-Murray fight may not have developed in the way that we'd like, but we've got to be honest. Groves versus Murray is a fight that could have headlined the card, definitely.
Not a pay-per-view card.
Not a pay-per-view card, but
and certainly not at the O2. Not sell out the O2. You'd put that in a much smaller venue. Put that in about 5,000. You put it in Sheffield or somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I think Groves v Murray could do a small to mid-sized venue and headline a non-pay-per-view card on its own. And
yeah, Groves is still quite a big name.
He's a huge name. He's been involved in the biggest fight in recent history.
I agree with you, but I'm just saying like that it's not like a good, like it wasn't a good undercard. The thing is that most of the time on pay-per-view, you don't buy a pay-per-view to watch an undercard. That's just a way of putting some spin on a bad fucking headline event. Like Eddie Hearn has decided, and Sky decided to send us away from the normal model we had like in America, where the very best fighters in good fights get pay-per-view, to fucking every fucking fight they can possibly manage is pay-per-view, just like it is in Australia or New Zealand. And so what we're going to get, Anthony Joshua is British champ, or he's world champion, I forgot that. Basically, he's fought fucking Charles Martin at a British level, and David Price. Was David Price even British champion?
Yeah, he was, mate.
He was British champion, yeah, he was. And every time he stepped up, he got his arse handed to him. So we've got basically 2 British level fighters fighting. I think Anthony Joshua was a lot better than British level, but all that he's really fought, apart from Charles Martin, I suppose he's fought Brazil. That's probably a bit harsh, but that's just not a good show. I think, Tom, you're overrating it. I don't think that'll go anywhere near Dillian White. Dillian White was a kind of a freak one because they really hate each other and there was a bit of a history. And Dillian White is a very, very good talker. But David Price, you don't need sleeping tablets if you watch a David Price interview. If you're finding it hard to sleep, put on a David Price interview. He's so fucking dull.
Yeah, but they are already starting to build it's not really the hatred that Dillian White was, but they're building a narrative, aren't they, with the knockout, the David Price claiming to have knocked him out and stuff. I think they're already starting to build that, and that could build it into something, couldn't it? Especially for the people that do, like you said, Irish Tom, want to see AJ knocked out.
Yeah, but I think that the people who want to see AJ knocked out are more the hardcore type fans.
Yeah.
And I think they know that there's no fucking chance David Price is fucking knocking him out. Unless he gets... there's a chance, but it's all he has. That it's not a good fight. They think AJ will just blast him.
Yeah. He's definitely got a chance, though. I mean, David
he has a chance, but
he can really bang.
He can bang. The thing is that one thing I'd say about David Price is that he seems like he's a fighter very lost in confidence and low in confidence. But if he goes into a fight with AJ and he feels like I've fucking done this guy already, I'm going to fucking do him again, he might actually fight with more of a confidence. But that could be the end of him too, because then he could just get fucking sparked even quicker. Because he really has one of the worst chins in heavyweight boxing for an actual top-level guy. Is there anybody else with a worse chin?
No, and he's quite slow as well, and AJ's
It's
very
fast.
quick, yeah.
And in recent memory, is there a heavyweight with a worse chin?
I can't think of, mate. I can't think one. No.
So we're putting a fella in with who's like supposed to be the second coming of Mike Tyson in against one of the fellas with the worst chins in heavyweight boxing, and we're saying it's pay-per-view. Fuck me.
It's funny when you say it like that. Price can be sold, but when you say it like that, it is hard to.
But that's the truth. Like that's the fucking truth.
Yeah.
What price? What price would you give David Price? Like what percentage chance of winning? He has a chance, but what is it?
15%.
Ah, Jesus, Tom, that's pretty high.
Pretty high, do you reckon? I wouldn't go as low as 10%. Maybe 15% is generous, but I'm thinking 13, 12. I'd say I don't. You're not going to get 8-1 on it, mate. You're not going to get 8-1. I'll tell you that. 6.5 to 1. 6.5 to 1. Yeah, something like that.
Fuck me.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I think the thing is to bet. Like I'll wait till I see the price is coming out, but like if it's under 3 rounds, man, it's 50-50. That's fucking good value. Oh dear.
Talking about odds, I went into William Mill the other day to ask about odds on the Golovkin Kell Brook. I think did any of you get the email I sent back?
Yeah.
And he's like, oh yeah, I fancy Kell Brook. Okay, what? Why?
Right.
He fancies his guns and his tight punching.
Yeah.
I think Spencer Fearon is picking Kell Brook.
No,
Yeah,
he's not.
He's a mate of his, though, isn't he?
I don't think he is.
Is he not, Tom? Yeah.
He's not picking him. He's kind of talking up his thing, his chances. Like I don't know. It was one of the topics I had on I sent for the show tonight. I was just like, in the last few days, like I've been looking at different things online about all the people who are calling the fight. They've been asked. There's one of them where I think Roger Mayweather goes around his gym in the Mayweather and asks people predictions, and he's like, yeah, it's a load of people. And now, like most people are saying GGG by murder. That was like literally what most people were saying. Of all the people that I've seen make a prediction, there's not one that said he can do it. And if we think about the price Fury had before Klitschko, Fury was about the same price, 5-1. And there was a lot of people saying Fury had a good chance in that fight. But there is nobody saying it for Kell Brook. I think that says a lot about the fight and whether it's hype or not, making that price the price it is.
Yeah. I mean, a couple of people are saying it's not as bad of a fight as everybody's making out and whatnot. I don't know if any of you have ever watched Precise Presenter.
Yeah, I don't like him. He's a racist.
Do you reckon? I've never seen any racist videos, but maybe
he is.
I don't know. I haven't seen that many of his videos, but he was saying it's not as bad of a fight as everybody's making out. So I don't know.
Do you know what I think here, right? I was thinking about this because when Tom sent the topic through, and I was thinking, let's say, and obviously this is completely make-believe here, but let's say Kell Brook had been campaigning at 160. Let's even say, for the sake of argument, that he had beaten some 160-pound fighters of semi-no, and there was no debate as to whether or not he was moving up in weight class. I guess what I'm saying is let's kind of take out of the equation the fact that he's moving up 2 weight classes.
Yeah. Would you still pick Gennady Golovkin to
I
beat?
still think Kell Brook is a 5-1 underdog, even if you take that weight thing out of it, because stylistically, I think the fight is completely wrong for Kell Brook. Kell Brook is an outside jabber who focuses on long-range punches, who doesn't fight on the inside, who doesn't punch to the body. That's how I view Kell Brook, and he's going up against a guy with bigger reach and a better jab and more power. So I've got to agree with Tom here. On the day of Fury versus Klitschko, I went out and I saw prices ranging between 7-2 and 5-1. I'm seeing the same prices now for Kell Brook, and I don't think it's comparable in terms of the chance.
It's not. It's absolutely insane. And I'd go a step further. I mean, I agree with you that stylistically it's a nightmare matchup for Kell Brook. But I'd go even a step further than that. I'd say even if you applied the same logic and said, right, okay, take the weight advantage out the equation, and you don't even look at it from a stylistic point of view. You just look at who's the better fighter. I'd still say the same thing based on that. I mean, like people. Triple G's got so many attributes. Some of them are more subtle, and maybe people don't notice them because of that. But Triple G is a very special fighter, man. You know, like I'd still say he was long, like a real favourite. I don't know that much about odds, so you know, but I'd still have him as quite a big favourite.
Absolutely.
Question?
Sorry, let's bring you yourself in, mate. What's your take on this Kell Brook odds situation? I don't know if you're a betting man, but do you have an opinion on the probability of the fight?
Yeah, you're right. I've never put a bet down in my life. I don't have a clue about odds or anything of the sort. But, obviously, based on what you're all saying, then I can't not agree with that, because I said the same thing last week. You know, I've watched video after video and read article after article, because I want, as a British person, I want someone to give me a reason to pick Kell Brook. Like I said last week, I went on a 10-minute rant saying there's no way he can win because the stylistic matchup doesn't make any sense. But obviously, look, he's a special one, so let's see how special he is. But I can't see it happening. But I mean, you know, okay, let's put it this way. Like you said, Kell Brook, let's say he's a natural 160 fighter. Kell Brook against Martin Murray, who would you pick?
Kell Brook.
Okay. Kell Brook against David Lemieux. Do you think David Lemieux could knock him out?
I'd make Kell Brook favourite if he was a natural 160 fighter.
Okay. If David Lemieux caught him clean, would he knock him out?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Who's a bigger puncher, David Lemieux or Golovkin, in your opinion?
Golovkin.
One punch knockout.
Golovkin.
Okay, so by that logic, Kell Brook's fucked. There's no way around it.
You know, there's a thing that worries me, lad.
We just said if he was a natural 160 fighter, which he isn't.
Yeah, this is it.
That's my point. There's a reason why I asked that. I wasn't doing that to be smart. I was actually genuinely trying to see what you guys say in regards to if he was at his natural weight and he got caught by a Golovkin clean. Not saying Kell Brook's got a bad chin, just saying if he got caught clean by one of the most devastating punchers out there right now in the game. And look, it comes down to the thing of, again, it's just basic common sense, and it's not to, again, discount Kell Brook or ridicule him. I'm not about that. I like Kell Brook. Kell Brook in the welterweight division is not a knockout artist. People, I think, overrate his punching power. And that's not, again, not to disrespect him or undermine him. He's a strong puncher. We can say he's got a very, very stiff, strong jab. You know, he's got a strong jab and he's got a good, strong right hand. He's a strong puncher. I don't have him as a big puncher. I don't think he's a you know, okay, knocking out a Kevin Bizier and a Jojo Dan or a Frankie Gavin, who don't seem like the strongest built welterweights or the most fit athletes in that regard. Kell Brook has all that going for him. Obviously, again, he's a naturally bigger guy, cutting himself down, killing himself to make 147, but he still comes into the ring carrying that weight advantage, that size advantage, that natural, athleticism and power. But he's not a big puncher. I don't think he's a big puncher. So I can't see how him moving up, at 13 plus pounds on fight night, he'll be probably over 160. He'll be 160 something, won't he? How is he gonna carry speed and power against a Golovkin, a guy who naturally fights at 160 anyway? It doesn't make any sense. For Eddie Hearn to say he's going to carry his power up and he's going to perform better at that weight, if you have never fought at that weight before, how the hell are you going to perform in the biggest night of your life at that weight or above that weight? If you're going to be fighting close to super middleweight division, how the hell can you guarantee that this guy is going to be at the best form? I think the weight is going to be a hindrance to Kell Brook. The reason why he's done so well at welterweight for 12 bloody years is because he's been able to make the weight. That's what it comes down to. Golovkin clearly is the bigger man because he cannot make 154, he cannot make 147 comfortably, or even killing himself in that regard. Kell Brook can make the weight. That's why he's fought at that weight. He has an advantage at that weight. He's a world champion at that weight. I cannot see any way he wins, and I want someone to help me see him winning, but I can't see it. I don't get how he's going to do it. He doesn't hit hard enough to wrestle a Golovkin. I think if he lands clean enough with a big shot, he'll make Golovkin think a bit more, because no one seems to make Golovkin think. He comes forward with his head, doesn't move his head, gets caught clean. Willie Monroe peppered him with shots and he didn't give a shit. Same thing with even Dominic Wade. He got caught with a few shots, he didn't care. But potentially, I think Kell Brook's technique and the way he punches is better than those guys. but his size is not the same as these natural big lads. Like Dominic Wade's a big lad, and so was William Rose was pretty big to me in that regard. But I can't see how Kell Brook wins, and I don't want to. You know, again, I don't want to pick against him because he's a British fighter, and I always pick the British fighters whether they win or lose. I like to pick them because I like to back our own. But I mean, I can't see it. You know, I'm just trying to pick every scenario I look at. If it's points, he's getting the beating of a lifetime, and never going to be the same. If it's stopped, I don't think he gets sparked like Amir Khan because I don't think it's that type of fight. But if he does get, it'll be a stoppage, and again, he'll never be the same. If he gets knocked out, then that's going to be brutal, and that'd be a big shock. So there's not really any way I see him winning unless it's a kind of fight where he's running all night. He manages to survive. If he tries to hold Golovkin, he's going to get thrown around. He's not big enough to hold him.
He's not going to be able to run as well because if you see that, yeah, but as well, if you see the picture, like when he weighed in, you see the picture and he's 176 pounds and he's not showing like fat. Now maybe he had drank a lot of water and he hadn't, you know, maybe he was full of food or something. But you know, you can't eat fucking a whole stone of food like that. He's obviously put on a lot of muscle mass. You can see it in his biceps. He looks a lot more muscle, nearly muscle bound, because he's not that tall of a guy. So he that's not going to help you with your stamina because your muscle, you know, the more muscle you carry, the harder it is to maintain your output. So like he's not going to be able to perform that movement probably plan. The other thing is I'd like to say as well is that after Conor McGregor got his arse handed to him by Nate Diaz, Floyd Mayweather was interviewed about it, and he was talking about how moving up in weight is not a joke. You know, it's a difficult thing to do.
It is.
And you have to take your time at it, and you've got to do it the right way, or you'll be found out. Now, the only reason that Kell Brook is doing this 2-weight class jump is because of, I think, money, and his career is fucking stagnating, to be honest with you. And that's not the right way to do it. And if you're ever going to, you look at all the boys who did move up in weights, you see, you know, Oscar or Shane Mosley or Floyd himself, these guys, they didn't fucking jump up 2 weight classes and fight the beast. They generally did it quite slowly, did a couple of fights here and there, see how their body listens to it. You know, I don't know, like, the only beast I know that does that kind of thing and it actually worked for him was fucking Roberto Duran. And Kell Brook is fucking no Roberto Duran.
Yeah, and that's the key point. When a lot of people, and I would say they're more often casual fans, a lot of people are talking about Kell Brook's power and how the power of Kell Brook could hurt Golovkin.
He hasn't got any power.
Well, what I'd say is Brook has decent power at 147. But it's a different kettle of fish at 160. Not only will Kell Brook hit hard for 160, but the guys at 160 are going to be so much more durable than the guys at 147. If you look at fighters in history, and if you look at the history of guys making weight classes and moving up weight classes, some fighters do retain power. Tom made an example earlier, Roberto Duran. Another great example would be Tommy Hearns. Tommy Hearns obviously started his career in the light divisions. I believe he was still scoring knockouts in the cruiserweight division. You know, it can be done. However, other fighters, it doesn't happen. You look at Arthur Abraham, a fearsome puncher at 160, doesn't knock people out at 168. Bernard Hopkins, again, a guy who was known as someone who could punch a bit at 160. Hasn't knocked someone out for a decade or something like that at light heavyweight. And there are further examples. Even Floyd Mayweather. People laugh at Floyd Mayweather and say he can't knock anyone out. People forget Floyd Mayweather put together a string of decent knockouts when he was fighting in the lighter weight classes. And you know, I don't agree with Seri in terms of Brook's power. However, I do think that Brook's power has been overrated. Fundamentally, Brook's been fighting small, average welterweights, Frankie Gabbing, Jojo Dan, Kevin Bizier, and he's looked powerful against them. But when Brooks fought slightly stronger guys, slightly more experienced guys like Sean Porter, Carson Jones, suddenly the power hasn't been as obvious. So if Kell Brook's power isn't corresponding to the Porters and to the Carson Joneses of this world, how on earth is it going to correspond to Triple G?
I mean, the thing is that the argument that Kell Brook's power could trouble Golovkin is so absurd. It's just beyond the joke. David Lemieux is what 30, like about 35 fights, and I think about 31 knockouts. A real big puncher, and a real big puncher at 160, and he caught Golovkin clean once or twice, and it didn't seem to affect him at all. As Sherry said, William Monroe Jr. as a big middleweight, he caught Golovkin clean. I don't think I've ever seen any of them even buzz him. I've not even seen Golovkin buzzed or even look troubled by any of them punches. So you're talking about a guy that is used to being hit by 160-pound fighters, and even at that level has got a really good chin. How is a welterweight going to come up and cause him trouble with power? It's absurd.
Mikey asked a question in the chat. Mikey's question was, if Kell Brook were to win, would he be more likely to win by KO or by points? I've actually been putting that in my head for 3 or 4 minutes, and I'm struggling to come up with an answer. You think points, do you, Paul?
Well, there's absolutely no chance whatsoever that he's going to knock Golovkin out.
No,
just not. No, none.
I'm going to say the opposite. I'll tell you why. Because we have seen time and time again in boxing where you have a massive underdog, and this is why we say it's boxing. This is what happens. One punch can change a fight. I'm not saying Kell Brook is going to do it. I don't see it happening. But if he wins, it's going to be because he lands the punch of a lifetime, and somehow rocks Golovkin. I can't see it happening. But I don't think he's in the last 12 rounds and win enough rounds or be competitive enough in enough rounds to get a victory. So if he was to win, I'd say it's by some sort of fluky right hand from the gods, and he wins somehow, because I can't see him winning on points. So I don't think there's any other way apart from some sort of super knockout, which isn't going to happen. But I would be more inclined to go for a very scary knockout, if anything.
I've something to say to you boys. Gennady Golovkin has knocked out the last 21 people in a row. Okay, and here's a list of the last 12 lads he's knocked out in a row. You ready for this? Proxa, Rosado, Ishida, Macklin, Stevens, Adama, Gill, Rubio, Murray, Monroe Jr., Lemieux, Dominic Wade. How the fuck is Kell Brook not getting knocked out if those boys are getting knocked out?
Yeah, he's getting knocked out.
You know,
some of them are decent and some of them are big. Now, I know they're not killers, but they're not useless.
And, another thing we have to look at, forget the power of Kell Brook. Let's look at the chin aspect. Now, we can say he hasn't necessarily been in with the best competition and all that, and that's fine. But go back to the Senchenko fight. Senchenko rocked him considerably with a punch. He fell back on the ropes. Yes, he retaliated within about 30 seconds and knocked Senchenko out. But he rocked him with a I think it was a left hook to the temple or something. And then you've got Carson Jones who put it on him. And we can either say these two are both very tough, gatekeeper level type of guys, or you can just say Kell Brook showed that if he gets caught with at the right time that he can be susceptible to having a bit of a shaky chin. But I wouldn't say he's got a shaky chin, but at certain points. But this is again Gennady Golovkin we're talking about. If he lands on this guy, this is a major problem. And I want to not necessarily backtrack, but I want to touch on this whole topic of jumping weights. It's not about sorry, pardon me. It's not about discrediting either Kell Brook or Amir Khan or anyone who's looking to do these sort of things. It's more about being real and as human beings and as fans of the sport, that there are weight classes for a reason. And hindsight's a wonderful thing, because before the Amir Khan fight, again, I'm going to go back to what Tom said in his initial video. This is it gets the pulse. The pulse is racing. This is a dare to be great and all this. And I remember Eddie Hearn was on Twitter once, and he said something about the whole when Khan Canelo was announced, he was kind of taking the piss out of the whole dare to be great hashtag. But then the other day, Matchroom Boxing do a promo and it ends with hashtag dare to be great. So I find that a bit ironic that they're going to try and pump Kell Brook with that same line, which is fair enough. But what it comes down to is this: both Amir Khan and Kell Brook took these fights against Canelo and Golovkin, and I say this with respect, simply because they are both desperate, and they're both desperate for two different reasons. Let's start with Amir Khan because the fight's already happened. Amir Khan chased Floyd Mayweather for 2 years. He was #1 WBC and mandatory for a while. He didn't manage to get the fight because Floyd was obviously the WBC's darling and managed to get his way around it whenever he could, and he avoided Amir Khan and didn't see any value in that fight. That's fine. Amir Khan tried to get Pacquiao. Pacquiao wasn't interested. Amir Khan wasted practically 2 years of his career because he overvalued himself and hadn't really beaten any top welterweight apart from Devin Alexander, who was a former IBF welterweight champion. That's it. And even that wasn't, at that point, Devin wasn't really, considered top 5. So he beats Chris Algieri, in a tough competitive fight. He's out for a year. He fights Canelo at 155. He had no other option. Let's be honest. Had he gone, who could he have fought? I don't get it. He could have fought Garcia, of course, because he's mandatory. But he chose to go up for some big money in a win-win situation. Whether he gets knocked out, whatever, he comes back down and challenges for the world title next time. But the point is, it was a desperation move. Amir Khan had nowhere else to go. The only way he could get credibility back to his name is by jumping up and this whole, daring to be great business. Kell Brook, his whole career has been a joke, let's be honest, in terms of competition. He's had a lot of setbacks, pullouts, this and that. There's a long list of fighters who's pulled out against, whether that's due to injury or it's all suspicious, whatever. The point is, they could not get the weakest champion in the division in Jesse Vargas in the ring with them for August. So there's a major problem here. He had to jump in the ring to add validity to his career. For him to jump in the ring with Gennady Golovkin, whether he wins or loses, that one move adds validity to his whole career. And in his head and in Eddie Hearn's head, they're thinking, well, the fact that we took this challenge, regardless, that says Kell Brook has balls, and it kind of erases or covers up his past, demeanors in his career. That's the way I look at it. And both Amir Khan and Kell Brook have been very, very desperate, and that's why they've got these fights. They're both going to get knocked out. Obviously, Khan's been knocked out. Kell Brook's going to get knocked out or stopped viciously. That will obviously lead to another big payday between them down the line, and that's another common factor in their career. But that's my take on that, and I think genuinely, these are fantasy matchups, aren't they? I mean, Khan, Canelo, the speed of Amir Khan versus the power and technique of Canelo, and Kell Brook against Golovkin. These are fantasy matchups. These are not realistic fights. I mean, these are dangerous fights. We saw what happened to Amir Khan, and that was scary. He was out cold. I don't think Kell Brook will be out cold, but this is a very, very dangerous, step up against someone like Golovkin. You know what I mean? I think the people in boxing need to take a look, because, like I said, this is not a Roberto Duran situation. This is a very, very different situation altogether, and it's actually quite worrying, if I'm honest with you.
Yeah, I agree, and I also think the people that are looking after Kell Brook, his management and stuff, have got a bit to answer for. Sorry, I know he's going to be calling the shots himself and whatnot, but you've just got to. I mean, I'd hope if that was like a son of mine or something, that the people around him, if I couldn't be one of the people around him, the people around him would care enough to say, look, this is insanity. Because I really do think I couldn't agree with you more, Sherry. I think it's very, very, very dangerous move for Kell Brook.
Interesting stuff, guys. Interesting stuff. That one sort of caught us there we sort of caught light with that one, didn't we? Let's move it on, because there's a few other topics actually we need to cover before we wrap it up for the day. One of them is a large piece of breaking news this week that James Degale versus Badou Jack is set to be announced. Degale says they are very close to announcing it for Vegas. Personally, I'm a bit sceptical. The reason being, we know how much James Degale got paid when he fought on Anthony Durrell. I think the market in the States has changed substantially since that fight occurred, and whether there's going to be a promoter out there or whether Al Heyman is going to put up $4 million, $5 million between the two fighters, I'm dubious of that. I'm dubious. So I'm not certain that this fight is going to happen. I also think if it does happen, it's going to be somewhat similar to Crawford Postol in the sense that I see it as the definite number 1 and number 2 of the division, but I'm afraid I don't see it as a competitive fight. So keen for people's takes on that. Irish Tom, let's start with yourself, mate.
Yeah, I don't think it's definite number 1 versus number 2. I think that most of these guys in that division now are of a similar level, and they've fought only, like, Grove has only fought, he fought Durrell, who's looked poor since he was beaten, and he bought Butte. I thought that was a good fight. I thought Degale was pretty good against Butte, but then he was poor against against Porky Medina. Badou Jack was reasonably good in his couple of fights. But like, I don't think any of them are standing out. So I just think that Ramirez as well, which fight I actually watched today, I think he looked as good as either of them. I don't think, Tom, they're going to get to be paid $4 or $5 million. I don't think that's going to happen.
I think that's what they'll want. I'm saying that between the two of them, so maybe 2 million each.
Yeah, but like, it depends on how it sells. But I don't think, I don't think you necessarily get paid way more money for a unification fight. It depends on the market. Like, if Degale is doing this, it depends on who would his mandatory be and all these different things, and would he prefer to be unified for his ego and all those different things. So, like, I don't know if they're going. If the market has changed, it just means they're going to be paying less money. They can't ask for money that say Al Heyman can't provide them. But it just shows to show you like how much money James Degale has been paid over the last 2 or 3 years versus Kell Brook, and how much his career has progressed versus say Kell Brook. So I think if you want to make money, you go to the States, and he's getting paid $1 million at least, probably $2 million for every fight. That's probably about £1.3 million versus 300,000 quid. 400,000 quid in the UK. So he's making the money. I think he's made the right move for his career. I think Degale is the better fighter. He's got more tools to him. If he doesn't gas out, and if he's got his right boxing head on, I think James Degale is one of those that if he's not up for it, he won't fight very well. I expect him to win. I don't know what the odds would be in this fight, but I think it'll probably be. I think Degale will probably win it easy in the sense that, say, Billy Joe Saunders bet Andy Lee easy, even though it ended up being close enough on the scorecards. I think Degale seems to me to be a clean fighter, or if he's juicing, he must be got a very bad tank. Seems to me to be a clean fighter, and he's always wary of gassing in the later rounds. So I think he is always going to try and just sit on his lead to a certain extent and to preserve his win. So I think it'll probably be a 12-round decision for Degale. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's a good fight.
Interesting stuff. What I was going to ask is, let's go. Sorry, I'm trembling over my words here. Paul, let's bring yourself in. What's your take on that fight, mate?
Sorry, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah, coming through, mate.
Yeah. I kind of agree with Tom. I think for me the 1 and 2 in that division is Ramirez and Degale. I think I know Jack's world champion and stuff, but I personally think Ramirez would beat him. I also don't think it's all that competitive. I think James Degale beats him quite easily or quite handily. Whether it'll happen or not, I don't know. I also think the money's going to be an issue. They are going to want good money. You see, James Degale when he's interviewed, he's after the big money fights. He feels like he deserves the big money fights now. I think he comes across like I've paid my dues kind of thing. I deserve the big paydays now, and I just don't think the demand's going to be there for it. I mean, like, how many non-hardcore fans would have heard of Badou Jack? I would suggest very few.
Well, I think, Paul, quite a few would have, because Groves was fighting him. So no, casual fans know about Groves and they know he lost to him.
Maybe. I just don't think that many would know who he is. I don't think either of them are a big enough name to warrant like 2 million each paydays and stuff.
The difficulty is that I know it's a unification and Degale wants to unify, but that George Groves fight is there. George Groves is actively calling out that fight now, and George Groves' profile is back on the rise after the win against Martin Murray. And for me, that's the fight where Degale could make double that in terms of the money he could expect to earn from that. He'd get a the lion's share of the purse there because of his world title belt. So I think he is in a position where he can demand a purse. He's earned good money in the past, and he's going to want to earn it again, or else the Groves fight is surely becoming more and more attractive.
Do you think he might be worried about losing to Groves a bit more than he would be worried about losing to Jack, though?
I don't know. When I look at James Degale, I see a super confident, super arrogant type. I find it hard to believe. And if we consider that at this stage of his career, he'd be a heavy favourite in both of those matchups. So I kind of can't even see him contemplating a loss, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, given the past, I mean, you know.
Yeah, that is a good point. Yeah. Sorry, what's your take on the matchup, mate?
Yeah, I think it's one of those fights where it is pretty much the guys who are put at number one and number two. I think Ramirez is a live dog in there, and Callum Smith in due time will be will join them. I think with a bit more experience. But I think James DeGale beats Badou Jack. It's not because Badou Jack's no good. I think he's efficient in every area, but I don't think if he has the ring savvy to deal with someone like James DeGale, especially on his day. It just depends on what James DeGale turns up in my book. I think if James DeGale performs the way he did against Butte and the Medina fight, I think it'll be a lot closer. But I still think he'll beat Badou Jack. But if he turns up and boxes the way he did for the first few rounds against Durrell, but throughout the whole fight, if you can do that, then I think it'll be a pretty easy win. Something like a 9-3 or 8-4. But otherwise, it's going to be a 7-5 type fight. Because at the end of the day, look, if it happens in America, Badou Jack is going to be a bit more favoured. He's the Mayweather guy at the end of the day. That will play some sort of part in it. And to be fair, I think Badou Jack. Of course, look, James DeGale and Badou Jack were both in different positions in their career, as was the George Groves that they faced. But Badou Jack handled George Groves better than I'd say than James DeGale fared back in 2011. But obviously, they were two very different fights and stylistically different matchups. But I just feel like when you look at the scalps that they both have on their resume, in terms of the guy they've competed against, a young, fresh George Groves in a tough competitive fight against a young James DeGale, a young and cocky James DeGale, who clearly believed in his own hype at that point. I think he became more grounded after that loss. We realised what he needs to work on, what he needs to, what areas he needs to improve in. And then you got Badou Jack, a guy who pretty much everyone was just saying, oh, he beat Anthony Durrell, but this guy's not all that. But then he put in a very solid performance against George Groves. I couldn't really fault him for that, and he did win. So you can't really dispute his championship caliber credential in that regard. But I think it's not a tough fight. I don't think it's a tough fight. I think again it just depends on what type of game plan James DeGale goes in with. At the end of the day, he's got the Olympic pedigree. He's a gold medalist. He can box. There's no denying that. It just depends on his work rate and stamina. Can he keep it up, and can he stick to a disciplined style of fighting? If he does, then like I said, he's gonna run away with it. But if not, then it'll be a bit closer. But I still think he wins either way. But Badou Jack is by no means an easy fight. I don't think it's an easy fight for anyone. I just think depending on James DeGale, it can be easier for him if he allows it to be. But yeah, for me, Ramirez is the guy to watch out for in that division as it stands.
Yeah, I completely agree. Ramirez really, really impressed me against Abraham. And also on Badou Jack, I think I agree. Jack is extremely solid, very tough, very strong. He fights late on into fights. And if DeGale turns up sloppy or lazy or overconfident, he could pull the upset, especially on the home turf. But when I look at Badou Jack, I don't see spectacular skill set, spectacular versatility, spectacular technique. I kind of do see that in James DeGale. To the eye, he is a fighter who looks like he is a real world-class operator. And I think if DeGale is on, he really should win the fight with a bit in hand, as far as I'm concerned. But he always makes it more competitive than it needs to be, as DeGale.
The odds bookmakers are giving best price 4-9 on DeGale. That's pretty shit price, isn't it?
That is I mean, I'm surprised it's that short. Actually, I thought it'd be more even than that. So what is Badou Jack over 2-1? Is he?
Yeah, I think it's 21-10.
Oh right, okay, yeah. So that's Yeah, so the bookmakers are certainly making him a favourite, but they've got it a lot closer than they did Crawford Pistol, for example. Um, so it's interesting. I can see people being tempted to have a play on Badou Jack at that price because people perceive it to be a 50-50. But to be honest, I actually think that's about right in terms of how I'd be pricing it if I was a
It's
bookmaker.
not necessarily a 50-50 fight. It's still a 60-40 or around that mark for a James Degale, I'd say. But I mean, I think let's put it in a comparative way. There's more chance of Badou Jack beating Degale than there is of Postal beating Crawford based on what we've seen now. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I
In terms of,
agree.
again, in terms of stylistic matchup, Badou Jack. This is a thing, and it's he's disciplined. I think we can agree on the way he fights. When he fights a certain way, he's disciplined because he sticks to the body work. That's one thing he's very good at. He's got underrated body work. He sticks to the body, and you see a lot of boxers. Manny Pacquiao is one that springs to mind straight away. They neglect the body. The whole thing that Mayweather, his jab to the solar plexus, breaking down, Maidana in the first fight, that springs to mind again. Things like that, again, because he trains in Mayweather's camp. These are things that he would pick up, and these are things that are becoming very, very natural to Badou Jack, and now he's implemented that in his last 2 or 3 fights. We've seen that the left hook, the body against George Groves, that took a lot out of George Groves towards the end of the fight. I kept seeing that over and over again. It's something that he implemented against Lucian Bute, a lot of body work. And that's something, like I said, it comes down to discipline. And I think, I'm not saying it's a close fight, but this is where the issue is, where you have a guy who's naturally more talented against a guy who's a very, very hard worker. If the guy who's talented comes in lazy, or chooses to be a bit lazy and let his foot off the gas a bit, then the hard-working, disciplined guy can really get into the fight. And that's where Badou Jack's going to have his chances if he can put his foot on the gas, really go in there. And I think he's got decent power, if I'm honest. I think that the power differential in this fight isn't going to be that much. It's just that James Degale is more of a, obviously he's got that left, the left hook and the straight left are pretty awkward because obviously, bearing in mind he's a southpaw, he's got a, his left hand is pretty hard, but I don't think he's a power puncher. But he's got a solid left hand. I think Badou Jack is, again, very, very efficient in what he does. So I think he's coming with a very educated game plan, and obviously his coach as well. They know what they're doing, so it's not going to be an easy fight. I don't think it's going to be a blowout similar to the Crawford proposed all the way it ended up being. Obviously, look, it's easy to say that now. We don't know what's happening on the night, but I don't see it that way. I see it closer than that fight, but I don't see it being a close fight, if that makes sense. But Degale's definitely the favourite as it stands. But again, I'm going to emphasise the point. It just depends on what Degale shows up. If not, then a disciplined, hard-working, efficient fighter like Badou Jack, who, in my eyes, he's a worthy WBC champion. He kind of embodies everything. He's disciplined and he's straight up from what we see. He seems like a stand-up guy. He'll fight anyone. I don't think he cares. So and he's confident. I like his swag. He's a quiet guy. He doesn't talk too much and he does his thing. So I'm interested to see that fight.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. Guys, we'll just break briefly for my favourite part of the show. We've still got a few things to cover, so we'll keep this part to just 1 minute. But it's that time of the week. It is time for the Anthony Ogogo update. I've been getting lots of emails, lots of tweets, lots of Facebook messages this week asking me what's going on in the world of Anthony Ogogo. And I've got to admit, it's not been a vintage week for Ogogo. Dave Allen, friend of the Boxing Gossip channel, this week tweeted, "I saw Savannah Marcel hammer Anthony Ogogo in sparring once, and I've never been able to look at him in the same way since." For those who don't know, Savannah Marcel is a very talented female amateur boxer, and it sounds like it didn't go well for Anthony Ogogo when they stepped into the ring. Now, I'm all for men sparring women and all of that stuff, but if Anthony Ogogo was getting handled by Savannah Marcel, what chance do we give him of living up to the power of Spike O'Sullivan, guys?
Well, I'm going to have to take him off my pound for pound list that I'd dutifully written up based on skill. I had him at number 2, so I'll have to rethink it now.
There we go. Let's move on. Chris Eubank Sr. returned to Twitter this week. As he returned at the same time as Frank Warren has won the purse bids for Tommy Langford. So potentially look like the Eubanks will be working with Frank Warren and Box Nason again. It does appear that Chris Eubank Jr. wants to vacate his Lonsdale British belt, and in order to keep that, he's got to fight Tommy Langford. So this fight looks like it's happening. As a result, Eubank Sr. has also exchanged multiple tweets with Billy Joe Saunders, hyping up a potential rematch and trying to talk Billy Joe into making that fight. Tom, I know you're a big skeptic. Is this the Eubanks once again trying to keep their name in the public eye?
Well, I actually, for some fucking reason, I don't know why, I actually went and read those tweets. God damn you, anyway, for telling me about them. So I wasted 5 minutes of my life going through it. But at one stage, he actually said, you know, he admitted, or he said that, oh, we got all this free publicity, so it wasn't a bad thing. You know, so that's kind of what it was about. And, like, we did say, well, I think it was me that said a few months ago that he'll fight 3 guys and he'll retain that, and then he'll look for the Billy Joe Saunders fight, because that's a more winnable fight. And I think it looks like that's probably going to happen. They'll get back onto Box Nation with Frank, with your man Tommy Langford, and then maybe setting up for a Billy Joe Saunders fight. But who knows? Like, I don't even think that he'd likely go back up. I don't know if it's that likely he'll go back up to the top level again. I think he'll probably try and stay at a lower level for a couple of years, because you know, I don't think he's gotten any better than when he fought Billy Joe Saunders. The only thing that he might do, because it was his first time when he fought at that high level, he mightn't freeze. You know, I think he kind of froze a bit in that one. He thought he could win a boxing match with a boxer. So maybe he'll, you know, just turn it into a brawl from straight off the bat. So it might increase his chances. But, you know, if he try to turn it into a brawl, Billy Joe might be able to just fucking hit him flush more. So we'll see. But, you know, Chris Eubank Sr. is a waste of space. He's an asshole, and I don't like the man.
Interesting. So you actually think that the Box Nation and Saunders route is potentially legit? Sherry, is that something you agree with, mate?
I mean, neither fighter really has any other option right now, do they? I mean, in terms of getting their names out there again and being a massive fight, then, you know, Saunders and Eubank would be, you know, the best remedy, wouldn't it, really?
Well, Billy Joe can fight Canelo, man.
Well, that fight seems to be in big trouble at the minute, doesn't it?
He could fight him, but that's only had he gone and fought on the Canelo Smith undercard, and then from there it made more sense, didn't it?
It's unclear whether Canelo would fight at 160 or whether he'd want it at 155 as well.
I think he'd fight him at 160 because Billy Joe wouldn't fight him at 155. He's already said that, and clearly...
He said he'd do it at 158, didn't he?
Yeah.
I think he said he'd go down as far as 158.
There's no need for that, though. What's the point of going to 158? Then Canelo might as well just jump to 160. There's no point in just bitching out. Fight at 160. No. Build from there. If you're serious about, you know, fighting Golovkin down the line, then he needs to get to 160 and start, you know, acclimatizing, doesn't he? Because it's easy to hear and say that 5 pounds is nothing, but it's different weighing in 5 pounds heavier than it is coming in 5 pounds heavier on the night, isn't it, really? Because if he comes in at 160, he's going to come in bigger on fight night, isn't he, really? You know, than what he has before, most likely. But yeah, I think Saunders is in a top position because he hasn't got any big names left to face now, because Lemieux and Stevens are fighting in October. Rosado he's turned down. Daniel Jacobs Moore is happening. Quillen's the only guy who he could potentially fight, but he's overweight and he's not interested in fighting right now. So he's got an Andy Lee rematch, which that would be disgraceful because that would be a year out of the ring for both of them, only to end up rematching, which is pointless. And it's not really a viable rematch. He beat Andy Lee pretty handily for me. But look, Billy Joe Saunders for me, this is the thing. Chris Eubank Jr. is a fighter, and if you let him fight, he's going to beat the shit out of you. But Billy Joe Saunders is a boxer, and Billy Joe Saunders is going to have the remedy for everything Chris Eubank Jr. throws his way. I think the second fight will be tougher than the first fight for Billy Joe, but I still think Billy Joe beats Eubank based on just the pure boxing skill. He's a better boxer all around in pretty much every category apart from maybe power. You know, even though we saw his stamina wane a bit, maybe in that regard, Chris Eubank Jr. is a better built machine. He's always in condition. He's always ready to go. He's always 100% ready and 100 miles an hour and throws a hell of a lot of punches. So as long as he lets his hands go instead of being a bit lost in the moment and in awe of Billy Joe, like he was in the first fight. That was his first real step up in his career, and we saw what happened. He didn't know what the hell to do. It wasn't the whole, he gave up the rounds. That's stupid. I don't believe in that. That's just lack of experience and not knowing what to do with a slick boxer like Billy Joe in front of you. But Billy Joe and Eubank, I think that fight should just happen next, and there's no point in them wasting each other's time. Get in the ring, get it on, earn some big bucks, get your names out there, and then build to a Golovkin fight, whoever the winner is.
What do you call it? I just having a look there at the WBO top 15 for the middleweights, and it's full of fuckers I've never heard of in my entire life. Number 1 is Avtandil Kurtzidze. Anybody heard of him?
Nope.
Number 3, Ryota Murata.
I've heard of him, genuinely.
Murata.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think I've heard of him actually. Yeah.
And the first guy.
You heard of the first guy?
Yeah, I swear to God, I've heard his name. I'm not even joking.
Yeah, Kurt Seedsy's on the what's that other podcast that do the prospects list and that? He was on one of their prospect lists about 2 years ago, I think.
Yeah, and the boxing rant, is it?
No, not
Boxing
the boxing
voice?
rant. No.
Anyway, here the next one, number 7, Rob Brandt. Have you ever heard of him?
Never heard of him.
Number 8, Maciej Silecki.
No.
Seletsky. Never heard of him. Number 12, Artur Akovov.
No.
Number 13, Yevgen Kaitrov.
Yeah,
I think I might have heard of him.
Yeah, I've heard of Kaitrov.
And then so then there's a few other lads like Max Bursak in there and Tommy Langford, number 2. He's earned his way up there by beating a guy who was 100 to 1 on.
Langford's number 2, is he?
Number 2, yeah.
Bloody hell.
So there's David Lemieux as well, Max Bursak, Indam, Chris Eubank Jr., Andy Lee, Rosado. Rosado's actually in the top 15. Curtis Stevens and Willie Monroe Jr. So they could have given them a fight with somebody better than fucking Rosado. They could have put him in with Curtis Stevens or Willie Monroe Jr. They would have been decent fights on that undercard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Curtis Stevens has taken the fight against Lemieux, but I don't know about
That's right, yeah.
Willie Monroe. Paul, I was going to say, on a related note to the Chris Eubank stuff, there was also the talk about Eddie Hearn and his comment that fighters own the show when they headline a pay-per-view. For my money, Chris Eubank Sr. was making very sarcastic remarks on Twitter that Eddie Hearn was saying they owned the show, but they actually didn't. He was giving the example that if I own a car, I can paint it pink if I wish. If I own the show, I can get the commentators and the security that I wish. What's your take on that, mate? Do you think Eddie Hearn has maybe been found out a little bit for trying to kiss Anthony Joshua's arse by pretending he owns the show?
I got to jump in here before Paul answers. Let me just say one thing here. Like, how fucking retarded is Chris Eubank Jr.? He's just trying to make it out like, oh, I didn't understand. I fucking thought we did own the show. Can you imagine in the negotiations and he start doing these things and Eddie Hearn would be sitting there going, no fucking Chris, that's not how it fucking works. Like the minute he tried it, and for them to let him think like it went on for a month and only now he fucking copped on. That's what own the show means.
He actually tweeted that Barry Hearn has said he understood how this could be confusing.
Oh yeah, understood how it could be confusing. Yeah, if you were in a vegetative state, perhaps. But
I agree with you, Tom. I totally agree. It's common sense. Having said that, I have always thought when Eddie Hearn's been like, oh, Joshua owns the show. Oh.
Okay. Has Tom froze for anyone else? Hello, can anybody hear anything?
I can hear you now, Paul.
Oh yeah, I can hear you. Did Tom just freeze for you guys?
Yeah, Tom just frozen.
Yeah. Tom, you may need to get off that call and come back. What'll that mean to our live thing?
Hey?
What'll it mean to the live show? Can the chat hear us talking now?
I've got no idea.
Yeah, Archibald says they can hear us. What about Tom? Is Tom on? If he quits, then the whole thing will fucking go down. Who knows?
Oh no, he's joined. Tom's joined.
Hello, guys. Hello.
Hello, mate.
Yeah. How you doing?
Not sure what happened there.
Well,
We're still live, by the way.
We had a knockout of the year, mate. Knockout of the year, that was.
It was NSA.
He was on his Amir Khan shit.
Oh,
yeah,
Jesus.
you just froze, Tom. Basically, you completely froze mid sentence, and so
Frozen again.
Just like Chris Eubank Jr. did in the first in the Billy Joe Saunders fight.
A bit of a Klitschko Fury going on.
Yeah.
What's going on? He's frozen again. What's this, man?
Yeah.
oh yeah, he's frozen again.
Anyway, I think we should take over. So
Absolutely.
Tom,
Yeah.
Tom, what's your top five current favorite fighters based on whatever you like?
Oh wow. Jesus
Whatever
Christ.
you like, whether it's resume, whether they've won or lost, it doesn't matter. What do you like about them?
Fuck. Right. Well, I must say I do. Yeah,
Oh,
he's back.
There we go.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on here, guys. Sorry about that. Can you all hear me?
Yeah,
Unfortunately, yeah.
we
were getting on grand here without you.
Yeah, we were doing fine.
It's
We were
frozen
just
again.
going into top 5 pound for pound lists, seeing that you'd abandoned the ship.
Let's keep going on that top 5 thing because, and we'll see what happens if Tom comes back. Let's see if he can join for more than 10 seconds before it goes off. What do you call it? I'd say my top 5, I don't know. I think I like Tyson Fury so much because he's such a funny talker and he's a good boxer. So I'd probably put Fury in there. God, who do I like? Top 5. Golovkin. I love Golovkin's style. And if I put Golovkin in, I'd have to put in Gonzalez because they're a similar style. I'd have to put Andre Ward in there because I think he's the best boxer. And who else? A wild card. Let me put in Errol Spence because I think he might come in and blast the shit out of everybody. There's a top 5. I just made it up on the spot though, so it's probably fucking useless.
What did you say? Who was the last one?
Errol Spence.
Oh, he's good.
Just as a wild card because I think he might be the future.
What about yourself, Paul?
Yeah, well, I must admit I did actually write it out. I've written it all out earlier, like. Yeah, I've got Roman Gonzalez at 5. Sergey Kovalev at 4. So it might raise a few eyebrows, but this is just based on what I see